The rain had been falling for almost an hour. Not heavy enough to scare anyone away. Just soft enough to make the world look sad. Inside a small apartment on the 3rd floor, a man sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that does not feel peaceful, but abandoned. His phone kept lighting up. One message after another. But none of them asked, "Are you okay?" None of them said, "We miss you." None of them said, "You matter to us." They all wanted something. A favor. A ride. Money. Help with a problem. Someone to listen. Someone to fix what they had broken. He looked at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in his life, he placed the phone face down. And did nothing. No reply. No explanation. No apology. No rescue. Just silence. And in that silence, something inside him finally understood a truth he had spent years trying not to believe. Some people do not love you. They love what you do for them. Some people do not miss your heart. They miss your usefulness. And the hardest part is, you usually learn this truth after you have given them the best parts of yourself. His name was Daniel. To most people, Daniel looked like a good man. Quiet. Responsible. Reliable. The kind of person who always showed up. At work, he was the one who stayed late when someone else had an emergency. In his family, he was the one who answered every call. Among friends, he was the one who listened to everyone's problems, even when he had not slept properly in days. He was the one people came to when life got heavy. And because he was always available, people slowly forgot he was human. That is how it happens sometimes. People do not always use you loudly. Sometimes they use you gently. With sweet words. With emotional pressure. With small emergencies. With guilt hidden inside sentences like, "You're the only one I can count on." And if you have a soft heart, those words feel like love. But sometimes, they are just a prettier way of saying, "I need you to keep carrying what I do not want to carry myself." Daniel did not understand this at first. He thought being needed meant being loved. He thought if people depended on him, it meant he mattered. He thought if he kept proving his loyalty, one day people would finally see his heart. But the truth is painful. A person can be useful to everyone and still feel completely unloved. Daniel learned this slowly. Not in one dramatic moment. Not in one betrayal. But through hundreds of small disappointments that quietly collected inside him. A missed birthday. A message left unanswered. A tired voice ignored. A favor expected but never appreciated. A sacrifice forgotten as soon as it was received. People called him when they needed help. But when he was quiet, nobody asked why. People praised him when he solved their problems. But when he was breaking, nobody noticed. And the strange thing was, he kept telling himself it was okay. They are busy. They have their own problems. They probably didn't mean it. I should not be too sensitive. This is how kind people abandon themselves. Not all at once. But sentence by sentence. Excuse by excuse. Until one day, they realize they have protected everyone's feelings except their own. Daniel worked at a small marketing company in Chicago. He was not the loudest person in the office. He was not the one telling jokes in the break room or showing off during meetings. He was the quiet one in the corner who did his job well. The one who remembered deadlines. The one who helped new employees. The one who fixed mistakes that were not his. His manager often said, "Daniel, I don't know what we would do without you." At first, those words made him feel proud. He would smile, lower his head, and work even harder. But over time, the sentence started to feel different. Not like appreciation. More like a warning. "We don't know what we would do without you." But nobody ever asked, "What are we doing to you?" Every Friday, while others left early, Daniel stayed behind. He corrected reports. Answered emails. Prepared presentations. Covered for co-workers who forgot their responsibilities. And every Monday, the same people walked in smiling, acting like his sacrifice was normal. Nobody saw the coffee cups on his desk at midnight. Nobody saw the way he rubbed his eyes from exhaustion. Nobody saw him sitting in the empty office, staring at the city lights, wondering why being dependable felt so lonely. Sometimes the people who call you strong are the same people who keep adding weight to your back. They do not always admire your strength. Sometimes they are just grateful you have not collapsed yet. Outside of work, Daniel's life was not much different. His younger brother called when he needed money. His mother called when she needed someone to calm the family down. His friends called when they were heartbroken, drunk, angry, lost, or bored. But when Daniel once sent a message that said, "Can we talk? I'm not doing great," the reply came 3 days later. "Sorry bro, been busy. What's up?" By then, Daniel had already swallowed the pain. That was one of his greatest skills. Swallowing pain quietly. He had learned it early. As a child, he was the peaceful one in a loud house. When his parents argued, he became quiet. When someone was upset, he tried to fix the room. When people cried, he comforted them. Nobody taught him how to be a child. They taught him how to be useful. And when a child is loved mostly for being helpful, he grows into an adult who feels guilty for having needs. Daniel did not know how to ask for care without feeling like a burden. So he became easy to love in the only way he understood. He became useful. He became low maintenance. He became available. He became the person who never asked for much. And people loved that version of him. The version that did not complain. The version that answered quickly. The version that gave more than he received. The version that smiled even when he was tired. But deep inside, another version of him was waiting. A quieter version. A wounded version. A version that wanted to ask, if I stopped helping everyone, would anyone still stay? That question scared him. So he avoided it. He kept giving. Because giving made him feel safe. Giving made him feel needed. And being needed felt close enough to being loved. Until one winter evening changed everything. It was a Thursday. Cold. Windy. The kind of night where the city looked beautiful from a distance but cruel when you had to walk through it. Daniel had been working late again. His body felt heavy. His mind felt crowded. He had not eaten since lunch. As he packed his laptop, his co-worker Melissa rushed to his desk. "Daniel, I'm so sorry, but can you please finish this client deck for me? I completely forgot it's due tomorrow morning." Daniel looked at her. He wanted to say no. He had promised himself that morning he would go home early. He had promised himself he would rest. But Melissa looked stressed. And Daniel's heart did what it always did. It betrayed him in the name of kindness. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'll take care of it." Melissa smiled with relief. "You're seriously the best." Then she left. Just like that. No guilt. No hesitation. No awareness that she had just handed her stress to a man already drowning in his own. Daniel stayed until almost 1 a.m. When he finally stepped outside, the streets were nearly empty. Snow had begun to fall lightly. His fingers were numb. His eyes burned. And as he walked toward the train station, his phone rang. It was his brother. Daniel answered. "Hey." His brother did not ask why his voice sounded tired. He did not ask where he was. He just said, "Can you send me $300? I'll pay you back next week." Daniel stopped walking. For some reason, the cold felt sharper. He looked at the falling snow under the streetlight. And something inside him whispered, "Ask him if he knows how you are." But his brother kept talking. "I really need it tonight." Daniel closed his eyes. He wanted to say, "I need help too." He wanted to say, "I am tired." He wanted to say, "I don't think I can keep doing this." But the words got stuck in the same place where all his needs had been buried for years. So he sent the money. His brother said, "Thanks, man. You're a lifesaver." Then the call ended. Daniel stood there in the snow, phone in hand, feeling less like a brother. And more like an emergency contact. Sometimes pain does not arrive as a scream. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet realization. A sentence your soul finally says when your heart has had enough. That night, Daniel realized something. People kept calling him a lifesaver. But nobody asked who was saving him. When he got home, The apartment was dark. He did not turn on the lights. He sat on the floor beside his bed, still wearing his coat. For a long time, he just stared at nothing. Then his phone buzzed again. A friend named Marcus. "Bro, can you talk? I'm going through it." Daniel stared at the message. Marcus had not replied to Daniel's message from 2 weeks ago. The one where Daniel had said, "I feel like I'm disappearing." But now Marcus needed someone. And Daniel felt the old instinct rise inside him. Answer. Help. Be good. Be useful. Do not disappoint. Do not make people feel alone. But then another feeling rose beneath it. A deeper one. A tired one. A wounded one. It asked, "Why is everyone allowed to need me, but I am not allowed to need anyone?" That question broke something open. Daniel put the phone down. He did not reply. At first, silence felt cruel. He felt guilty. Selfish. Wrong. That is what happens when you have spent your whole life being useful. Rest feels like betrayal. Boundaries feel like violence. Saying no feels like becoming a bad person. But sometimes the guilt you feel is not proof that you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is proof that you are finally doing something different. The next morning, Daniel woke up to several missed calls. Marcus had called 3 times. His brother had sent another message. Melissa had emailed him about another project. His mother had left a voicemail asking him to call because there was family drama again. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed. The sunlight came through the blinds in thin lines across the floor. His apartment was quiet. His chest felt heavy. But for the first time, he noticed something. Nobody was angry because he was hurt. They were angry because he was unavailable. That difference changed him. Slowly. Painfully. Completely. At work, Melissa approached him with her usual rushed smile. "Hey, can you help me with something real quick?" Daniel looked at her. His heart started beating fast. His mouth went dry. A simple no can feel terrifying when your identity has been built on being easy to need. He took a breath. "I can't today," he said. Melissa blinked. "Oh, are you busy?" Daniel almost explained. He almost gave reasons. He almost apologized. He almost offered another time. But then he remembered all the nights he had explained his exhaustion to people who never cared enough to protect him from it. So he simply said, "Yes." That was all. One word. Small. Quiet. But inside him, it felt like a door opening. Melissa's face changed slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough for Daniel to see the truth. Some people admire your kindness only when it remains convenient. The moment your kindness develops boundaries, they call it attitude. That afternoon, his manager asked him to stay late again. Daniel said, "I won't be able to tonight." His manager frowned. "This is unlike you." Daniel almost smiled. Because that sentence revealed everything. People do not always love who you are. Sometimes they love the version of you that never interrupts their comfort. "This is unlike you" often means, "You are no longer behaving in the way that benefits me." Daniel went home on time that day. The world did not end. The company did not collapse. People were uncomfortable. But Daniel was free. Not completely. Not yet. Healing does not happen in one brave moment. It happens in the trembling moments after. When you say no and your body still shakes. When you choose yourself and guilt still follows you home. When you stop explaining and your mind keeps writing paragraphs nobody deserves to read. That night, Daniel sat by the window with a cup of tea. The city moved outside. Cars passed. Lights flickered. People rushed through their own invisible battles. His phone was quiet. For once, nobody needed him. And the silence hurt. Because when you stop being useful to people who only valued your usefulness, your life may become quieter. But quiet is not always loss. Sometimes quiet is the sound of fake love leaving. Daniel began to notice patterns. The friend who only called during crisis stopped calling. The coworker who praised him stopped being warm. His brother became distant when Daniel stopped sending money immediately. Even his mother said, "You've changed." And maybe he had. But not in the way they thought. He had not become cold. He had become aware. He had not stopped loving people. He had stopped abandoning himself to prove it. There is a kind of heartbreak nobody talks about. It is not romantic. It is not dramatic. It is the heartbreak of realizing that some relationships were held together by your overgiving. The moment you stop carrying everything, the connection falls apart. And you finally see, it was never love. It was dependence wearing love's clothes. For weeks, Daniel struggled. He missed people who were not good for him. He missed being needed. He missed the temporary warmth of being called reliable. Because even unhealthy love can feel familiar when it is all you have known. Some nights, he almost went back. He would open old messages. Read them. Type replies. Delete them. Type again. Delete again. Healing is not always peaceful. Sometimes healing is sitting with the urge to return to what broke you. And choosing not to. One Sunday morning, Daniel went to a small diner near his apartment. He sat alone in a booth by the window. For once, he did not bring his laptop. He did not answer emails. He did not check who needed him. He just sat there, watching people walk by. An older waitress came over and poured coffee into his cup. "You look like someone who finally slept," she said with a small smile. Daniel laughed softly. It surprised him. He had not laughed like that in a long time. "Maybe I did," he said. She nodded. "Good. People forget rest is not a reward. It's maintenance." The words stayed with him. Rest is not a reward. It is maintenance. 4 years, Daniel had treated himself like a machine that only deserved care after everyone else was satisfied. But machines break. And humans break quietly when they are only valued for what they produce. After that day, Daniel began rebuilding his life in small ways. He started walking in the evenings. Not to escape. Just to breathe. He cooked simple meals. He slept earlier. He stopped answering every message immediately. He let people solve problems they were capable of solving. He allowed silence to protect him. And slowly, he began discovering who he was when nobody needed him. That is a strange and beautiful discovery. Because when you have spent your whole life being useful, your own identity can feel unfamiliar. At first, Daniel did not know what he liked. He did not know what made him happy. He did not know what peace felt like without guilt. But little by little, he found himself. In quiet mornings. In books he never had time to read. In music that made him feel less alone. In long walks under gray skies. In moments where he chose not to explain himself to people committed to misunderstanding him. One evening, Marcus finally came to see him. He showed up at Daniel's apartment with the same tired face he always had during a crisis. Daniel opened the door. Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Man, you've been distant." Daniel said nothing at first. He let the sentence sit between them. Before, he would have rushed to explain. Apologize. Comfort. Take responsibility for the distance someone else helped create. But this time, he simply said, "I was always there for you, Marcus. But when I needed you, you disappeared." Marcus looked away. "That's not fair." Daniel nodded slowly. "Maybe. But it's true." There was no anger in his voice. That was what made it powerful. He was not trying to win. He was not trying to punish. He was simply no longer willing to lie to keep someone comfortable. Marcus did not know what to say. Some people are only fluent in your availability. They do not know how to respond to your honesty. After Marcus left, Daniel felt sad. But not destroyed. That was new. Before, someone's disappointment could ruin his entire week. Now, he could feel pain without letting it control him. That is growth. Not becoming untouchable. Not becoming emotionless. But learning that your peace is allowed to survive someone else's discomfort. Months passed. Daniel changed quietly. He still helped people. But not at the cost of himself. He still loved deeply. But not blindly. He still listened. But he no longer became a home for everyone who refused to build one inside themselves. And slowly, the right people began to appear. Not many. Just a few. A co-worker named Elena who noticed when he looked tired and said, "You don't have to carry everything." A neighbor who invited him for coffee without needing anything. An old friend who apologized sincerely and learned to show up better. Daniel realized something beautiful. When you stop being useful to everyone, you make room for people who love you without needing a service from you. Real love does not only appear when you are helpful. Real love notices when you are tired. Real love does not punish your boundaries. Real love does not disappear when you stop overgiving. Real love asks, "How are you?" and waits long enough to hear the answer. One night, Daniel found himself again at the same kitchen table where everything had started. Rain tapped softly against the window. His phone lit up. A message from his brother. "Can you call me? I need help." Daniel looked at it. His chest tightened. The old version of him would have answered immediately. The old version would have forgotten his dinner, his rest, his peace. The old version would have felt responsible for everything. But Daniel was not that man anymore. He picked up the phone and typed, "I can talk tomorrow. I hope you're okay tonight." Then he placed the phone down. Not out of cruelty. Out of peace. He looked around his apartment. It was still small. Still quiet. Still ordinary. But something was different. He was no longer sitting in silence because nobody cared. He was sitting in silence because he had finally stopped begging to be valued by people who only came close when they needed something. And that silence felt clean. For the first time, Daniel understood that usefulness is not love. Being needed is not the same as being cherished. Being available is not the same as being respected. And being good to people should never require being cruel to yourself. He had learned the hard way that some people only love your usefulness. But he also learned something deeper. The loss of those people is not always a tragedy. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes life removes the people who only loved your hands, so you can finally meet the ones who love your heart. If you have ever been the strong one, the reliable one, the one everyone calls when life falls apart, but nobody checks on when you go quiet, remember this. You are not here just to be useful. You are not a tool. You are not an emotional shelter for people who never ask if you are safe. You are not selfish for needing rest. You are not cruel for having boundaries. You are not wrong for wanting love that does not depend on what you can provide. Some people may leave when you stop overgiving. Let them. Some people may call you different when you start choosing peace. Let them. Some people may not know how to love you when you are no longer easy to use. Let them learn your absence. Because the right people will not need you to destroy yourself to prove your love. The right people will not only show up when they need something. The right people will see the tiredness in your eyes and care enough to ask about the weight behind it. And one day, like Daniel, you may sit in a quiet room while the world keeps asking for pieces of you. And for the first time, you will not feel guilty for keeping some of yourself. That is not coldness. That is healing. That is not selfishness. That is self-respect. And maybe peace does not begin when everyone finally appreciates you. Maybe peace begins the day you stop handing your soul to people who only loved what they could take from it. Daniel learned that the hard way. But once he learned it, he never forgot. Because sometimes the most painful truth becomes the door to the deepest freedom. Some people only love your usefulness. But you were never born just to be useful. You were born to be loved fully. Even when you are tired. Even when you are quiet. Even when you have nothing left to give. And the people who truly belong in your life will understand that.